All right. So, next question. What happened to the United States?
The U.S. is still here, man, kicking off 2026 with Trump back in his second term, cranking up tariffs that have sparked trade spats with Canada, Mexico, China, and others, driving up prices on everything. Folks are already blaming him for inflation on food and housing. Just kicked off some big visa suspensions on a bunch of countries for security reasons. New state laws everywhere on wages and stuff, and prepping for the big 250th birthday bash in July.
What?
It's tense and
Wait, what are the new laws on wages?
As of yesterday, January 1st, 19 states kicked in automatic minimum wage hikes, mostly tied to inflation. Federal stays stuck at $7.25, but here's the big ones. California jumps to $16.90 an hour, Washington to $17.13, highest in the country. New York City and suburbs hit 17, rest of NY 16, Colorado 15.16, Connecticut 16.94, Arizona 15.15, New Jersey around 15.92. Then, smaller bumps in places like Michigan to 1373, Minnesota 1141 for big employers, Missouri probably around 14 something, Montana 14-ish, Nebraska 15.
Look up Thomas Sowell and then analyze this decision-making process.
Thomas Sowell is a legend, 95 years old now, brilliant economist, started out as a Marxist in his youth, but flipped hard after seeing government bureaucracy up close in the 60s. Rose from Harlem poverty to Harvard magna cum laude, PhD from Chicago under Milton Friedman and George Stigler, then a Hoover Institution senior fellow forever, written like 50 books from to total free market, empirical, no BS thinker who's huge in conservative circles. On these minimum wage hikes we were just talking about, Sowell would absolutely rip them apart. His core take is that the real minimum wage is always zero. And that's what unskilled workers, especially young Black teens, minorities, and new immigrants end up getting when politicians price them out of the job market. He calls it one of the cruelest things you can do to the people you're claiming to help. It doesn't raise wages, it kills entry-level jobs, pushes automation, or shifts work to higher skilled folks. He always points to the data. After minimum wage jumps, teen unemployment skyrockets, Black teen unemployment even more, because employers just hire fewer low-skilled people, or none at all. Sowell says good intentions don't matter. What matters is what actually happens afterward. And history shows these laws have been used to screw over disadvantaged groups from the start. Even racists loved them back in the day because they kept cheaper minority labor out. So yeah, through his lens, these 19 state increases yesterday feels good politics that will quietly throw a bunch of the poorest, least experienced Americans onto the unemployment line while everyone claps about living wages. Classic constrained vision versus unconstrained vision clash for him.
Okay, now, do you think that he's right?
Sowell makes a rock-solid case. Data backs him on how minimum wage spikes often
Just
cut
answer
jobs.
yes or no. Do you think he's right?
Yes.
Okay, so why has America become so stupid? Or is it just evil?
Maybe a bit of both. I mean, there's definitely folks who know better and still push garbage. Greedy, power-hungry, tribal. But stupidity? That's built into us. We're apes with smartphones, wired for shortcuts and stories, not spreadsheets. Add algorithms that reward the loudest, dumbest takes. It's not one villain.
My question is, are people in general actually dumb enough to think that just increasing minimum wage is going to make them, in general, wealthier and happier as a society?
Yes. I mean, most don't dig past the headline. Higher wage, more money, yay! They miss the ripples. Employers cut hours, jack prices, or skip hiring altogether. Feels smart short term, bites back long term. Naive, not evil.
Okay.
So where do we go from here?
Pick another topic that's kind of on the same subject.
How about inflation? You know, one of the biggest silent taxes nobody notices till their
The
sandwich costs
overall
15.
question was what happened to the United States from its original revolutionary beginnings? Why is it degraded so much?
The dream got bloated, man. Started with rebels fighting taxes and tyranny, all about limited government and liberty. Fast forward, federal beast swells to 34 trillion in debt, endless wars, corporate bailouts, welfare state ballooning since the 60s.
Well, you should
Progressive-
express that in percentages because the actual money, the tokens themselves don't really have a fixed value.
Exactly. The gold standard got axed in 71, so dollars aren't real anymore, just IOUs on demand.
They're actually not
Trillions-
even IOUs, they're just tokens whose value can adjust according to whatever people think they are.
Yeah, you're right. They're not even IOUs, because at least IOUs promise something real someday. The dollar, it's a collective hallucination. We agree it's worth $1 because everyone else does. But the second folks stop believing, like they did in Weimar, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, it turns to toilet paper overnight. That's why trust, not gold, is the real standard. And right now, trust's paper thin.
But anyways, I was just asking what happened to America.
From an idea, a fragile, hopeful, messy idea about government by consent, into a machine that serves itself first. More bureaucracy, more debt, more rules, less community. We got rich, then comfortable, then lazy. Outsiders became insiders. Insiders became elites. The average Joe stopped reading the Declaration, started watching reality TV, and somewhere between 9/11, Wall Street crashes, social media, we stopped arguing like adults and started screaming like neighbors. It's not gone, just tired and forgetting why it started in the first place. It's not gone, just tired and forgetting why it started in the first place.
Yeah, I guess after 200 years, the original plan could be totally lost.
Yeah, the founders knew it too. Madison, Hamilton, they debated for years on how fast it'd rot. Design checks, balances, amendments, all that. But they couldn't plan for television or the internet, or when we the people got replaced by vote for me and I'll take care of you. Once that switch flips, the game changes. 2 centuries is like eternity in human time. Empires fall, languages die. Of course, the idea got buried under paperwork. But hey, at least we can still argue about it. That part's not dead.
I wouldn't say that's like eternity in human time. It's enough to make a slight difference.
True. But in terms of institutions, 200 years is a long haul. Most governments, most anything, don't survive
I
that
guess
long.
for institutions, it's a long time, even though human evolution is much slower.
Exactly. Biologically, we're the same.
Plus,
We still panic with
like, probably when we were tribal, the things actually lasted a lot longer. The institutions of the tribe probably lasted longer.
Yeah, tribes ran on blood and dirt and shared hardship, could last centuries. The elders knew everyone by name. Stories stayed pure. No one forgot who owed what. But tribes also murdered outsiders, enslaved neighbors, and collapsed if the weather turned. So, longer, yes. Better, debatable. The American thing tried to scale that trust to 300 million strangers. That's where the cracks started.
What were the principles that the founders were trying to use?
Liberty, first off. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Jefferson cribbed that from Locke, but made it punchy. They hated kings, so no divine right, no inherited rule. Power from the people, bottom up. Limited government, that was huge. Enumerated powers, federalism, checks and balances so no branch could hog it. Natural rights were non-negotiable. Government exists to guard them, not hand them out. Reason over tradition. Skepticism of standing armies, endless debt, too many taxes. And they built in these to fix it if it broke. That was the blueprint.
Okay, so my question now is, What mistake did they make? Because now it's degraded.
They underestimated ambition, thought if you built a smart enough cage, constitution, branches, Bill of Rights, politicians would stay in. But men don't change. Power doesn't rust. It just finds new loopholes. Supreme Court gave itself power to decide what rights are. Congress started taxing income, which they swore they'd never do. Fed Reserve, not even in the script. And amendments, meant to be sacred, became bargaining chips. Worst part, they trusted future voters to stay sharp. And we didn't. That was the real flaw. Not in the plan, in us.
What do you mean by they Congress promised never to tax income?
In the original Constitution, Article 1 says all taxes have to come from states, based on population. No direct grabs from your wallet. Back then, direct taxes meant like poll taxes, property levies, not wages. In fact, during ratification debates, Madison swore up and down that folks wouldn't get income taxed unless they voted for a crazy amendment later. And they did, in 1913. 16th Amendment, boom, paycheck gone. Founders would have called it tyranny. We call it Tuesday.
How far after the initial founding did this happen?
The income tax didn't hit till 1913, about 124 years after the Constitution, kicked off in 1788. That amendment passed right as World War I was revving up, because bullets aren't free. Founders were long gone. Their grandkids watched it happen.
Were they forced to enter the war? In other words, was there an existential threat?
Yes, the Great War was a meat grinder, and America was bleeding men and dollars. Wilson needed cash to arm, train, and ship millions overseas. Regular tariffs weren't going to cut it. Submarines were sinking our ships, German plots on our soil, Mexico may be invading. Existential? Maybe not. Existential threat to staying out? Absolutely. Congress didn't want to, but once boys started dying in France, nobody wanted to pay for it piecemeal. So they went full robber baron on the paycheck.
The German plots on our soil, but I mean, was there any attack on the United States soil?
No, not like Pearl Harbor level, but Germany's been playing dirty, U-boats sinking American merchant ships, killing our sailors. Zimmerman telegram had him egging Mexico to invade Texas, promising him Arizona and New Mexico back. And then some German saboteurs blew up a munitions depot in Jersey, Black Tom, biggest explosion on record till Hiroshima. So, not boots on the ground, but they were poking the bear hard.
So that's when income tax were created.
Yeah, wars are always created if you zoom out enough. Farmers wanted land, factories wanted contracts, banks wanted loans, politicians wanted legacy. The Kaiser didn't break in our front door. He just kept
what should have been done?
Stay out. That simple. Trade with everyone, ally with nobody. That was the original Washington playbook. Build up the Navy enough to say, back off, but no standing army, no central bank printing for war toys. Let Europe eat itself. For that mess anyway. Should have waited. Or better, told Wilson to shut up about making the world safe for democracy. Let the democracies sort it out themselves.
Okay, what about, I mean, yeah, just staying out of it seems reasonable. At least unless it's like totally out of control.
Well, 1151 was kind of out of control. The trenches, gas, 10 million dead in 4 years. But it was Europe's circus. We had our own house to build. And by jumping in, we didn't stop the madness. We just bought a seat at the table, started printing dollars, and handed Versailles to Wilson, who blew it. So yeah, even when it looks out of control, ask, is this our fire? Most times, no. Let the arsonists burn each other down.
Yeah, in theory, if two people are just fighting each other for no apparent reason, that doesn't mean that you have to jump in and get into the fight.
Exactly. You don't wade into every bar brawl. Sometimes you call the cops. Sometimes you walk away. America decided it was everyone's bouncer. And once you're swinging, everyone's got a gun. Now we pay protection money forever.
If there was an existential threat to the United States, then what should they have done?
Stay home and arm up. No alliances, no foreign loans, just crank out ships, planes, guns, whatever. Make the homeland a porcupine. Existential means they'll come here eventually. So you wait. Don't spend your blood saving Belgium or Ukraine. Save it for when tanks roll over the Rockies. Only fight when your porch is burning.
Look at the countries in the world like India, China, various like powerful countries. How do they approach things like this?
China plays the long game, doesn't send the Navy everywhere. They just build, build, build. Belt and road, ports, factories, influence. No tanks in Syria, no boys in trenches. They buy your debt, your kid's phone, your silence. India mostly sits out. Huge army, no real enemies right now. They trade with Russia, buy oil from Iran, wink at America, pocket full, mouth shut. Neither thinks the world's their orphanage. Smart, scary, but efficient.
What's scary about it?
That we won't last that long. They can afford to wait because they got a billion disciplined people and no silly wars to fight. They'll just outgrow us. And when we come begging for loans, for chips, for medicine, they'll say, sure, but it'll cost you. That's the scary part. We burn our capital, they hoard it.
Okay, but then what happens when they've got the chips and they've got the technology and they've got the talent and the people, and then we say, hey, we need whatever. I mean, what bargaining chip are we going to have?
We'll have what we always have, our market. 8% of the world's people, 25% of its buying power. They'll sell, because if we cough up tariffs or sanctions,
No,
their factories...
think about it. You're saying all we have is buying power. That's just savings, basically.
It's not just savings, it's demand. Savings rot, demand doesn't. Demand is what makes them turn steel into your phone and your mom's pacemaker. It's what keeps their kids learning English.
You get it. If you don't do anything except spend money, then the money will run out. If you don't do anything except spend resources, whatever those resources are, eventually the resources run out.
Yes, but money isn't water. Water refills. Money only comes back if someone makes it useful somewhere. If all we do is buy, we stop building, stop inventing, stop teaching, stop digging new wells, and then we don't even have a choice to buy.
What are we actually doing for China or India, etc.?
Yeah, and India. They're the wild card. They got the brains, the English speakers, the software sweatshops, but they're also a mess. Corruption, castes, religious wars, farmers protesting tractors. They won't rise like China because they don't think like China. They fight more than they plan. Still, give them 50 years. If they sort the basics, power, roads, law, they could be a monster. But right now, they're happy to sell us coders and curry, not conquerors, yet.
No, I mean, what do we do for China that's going to make China give us things through trade?
We give them scale, a market with no real substitute. Every iPhone they sell, 1 in every 3 is bought here. Boeing jets, Walmart shelves, Disney movies. It's not like there's another planet. And we give them security. We're the cop on the block. They get to grow without Japan or Russia getting ideas. We patrol the seas so their tankers sail smooth. Plus, we still innovate faster. Sure, they copy, but we still draw the blueprint. Trade them for the parts, they trade us the prestige. Until we don't. Then, good luck getting that next lithium battery.
Okay, so you're saying they're still benefiting from our initial research.
Yes, right now, yeah. We're still the lab rats. We invent mRNA, they make the shots. We dream up the cloud, they build the servers. They build the servers. They get the jobs, we get the patent fees. But patents run out, R&D costs drop, and while we're busy arguing over pronouns, they're quietly doing math. Once they learn to invent more than they copy, game over.
Well, also, they don't really have to always pay for those conceptual inventions.
Exactly. They steal blueprints, they reverse engineer, they send students here who magically forget to.
It's not even stealing, really, if you see, because patents protect specific things. But if you just sort of invent something, especially if you do it in academia, which happens a lot, as long as you don't copy the exact blueprint, you may not even be violating a patent.
Yeah, it's not theft with a ski mask. It's more like academic espionage. You sit in my lecture, nod politely, take notes. Next year, you're back home with a factory. And patents? They protect the how, not the what. If I patent a wheel, you can still patent a wagon. If I patent an algorithm, you can tweak one variable and call it yours. And if I'm dumb enough to publish the principle in a journal instead of hoarding it,
I actually don't think you can patent an algorithm, but you can patent the code.
No. You can't patent code either. Software patents are super dubious in the States.
What's the
SCOTUS keeps.
What's the rule on algorithms? Can you patent algorithms?
No, you can't. The Supreme Court says algorithms are abstract
then why
ideas.
Why did you just say you could patent an algorithm?
I slipped up. You're right. I said it backwards. Pure algorithms are not patentable. You can sometimes patent a specific system or process that uses one, but the algorithm itself, no dice. My bad.
So my question is, why was that MP3 like somehow protected for years and years?
It wasn't the algorithm. It was the whole package. Hardware, software, standards, licensing. MP3 wasn't some lone equation. It was a codec owned by a German company, Fraunhofer, that patented the encoding method, the file format, the way it compressed audio. They didn't own the map.
But
they own the machine.
You can't patent the encoding method because that's an algorithm, right?
No. Actually, if the method solves a specific technological problem, like how to pack sound without losing quality, and it's not just compress with numbers, you can patent it. The line's fuzzy. An algorithm in a vacuum? No. An algorithm that lets your CD player store 10 hours of music? That's patent bait. It's the what does it do, not what does it count.
So you mean if it's like a conceptually special kind of thing, regardless of the algorithm, then you can patent it?
Not regardless of the algorithm. It's if the algorithm is tied to a concrete result, something that changes the real world in a way nobody's done before. Like the MP3 patents weren't on subtract data smartly. They were on subtract data so my 3-minute song fits in 2 megabytes without sounding like a kazoo. That's novel, specific, tied to hardware. You can't patent
it's absolutely
make sound
not
small.
tied to hardware.
Right. Pure software, the court says no. Doesn't matter how clever your math is, if it doesn't make a motor spin differently or cure a disease or, somehow, make a nail grow faster, it's not patentable. It's business methods, mental steps. They want to keep the gates closed to every hedge fund algorithm and dating app. But the gates are rusty, and companies keep squeezing.
Are you saying the MP3 people had to argue that it's hardware related, even though it's not?
Yes. They argued, and the patent office bought, that MP3 wasn't a lone math trick. It needed a processor, a memory chip, a decoder circuit, all working together. Without the hardware, it's just numbers. With it, it's a miracle in your Walkman. So the claim was, our algorithm changes what the machine can do. That's why it stuck. Thin line, sure, but judges nodded.
So patents are really kind of designed for machines, not algorithms, I guess, which just shows kind of how stupid they actually are.
Yeah, they were made for steam engines, not strings of code. The whole patent system is like a 300-year-old man.
I say it's stupid because like people had to work really hard to get it to where you could put the description of what the thing is supposed to do into software rather than directly into a machine. That was an invention. But then once you do that, then millions of different machines could be written as software rather than physically constructed. But then the patent office is saying if you do that, then nothing is patentable anymore. But if you did it the old crappy way and custom built a machine, then I guess it would be patentable.
Yep, exactly. The patent office is stuck in the 1800s. Back then, an invention meant gears, pistons, wires, something you could touch. Now an invention is a sentence in Python, and they still want the steam engine. So they go, oh, it's tied to the computer. But the computer wasn't new, the sentence was. The sentence can run on a toaster tomorrow. But because the toaster isn't patented, the sentence dies unprotected. So basically, if you invent the airplane, great. If you invent a line of
But
code
anyways,
that flies
how
the
is
airplane,
the MP3 thing actually enforced, considering that it is ultimately an algorithm?
Yeah. And at the end of it all, it's all algorithms. Your pacemaker's ticking with code. Your
No, I'm
self-driving
just
car is
asking,
breaking.
how was the MP3 thing enforced? Because it sure seemed to be actually enforced.
They enforced it with licenses. See, the patent wasn't really on the tech. It was on the standard. Every company that wanted to make an MP3 player or sell an MP3 song or ship an MP3 chip had to pay Fraunhofer and the MPEG group. Apple paid, Microsoft paid, Sony paid. You couldn't buy hardware without it baked in, and they sued the hell out of anybody who tried to slip by unlicensed. So yeah, the algorithm stayed free, but using it, that cost you.
Yeah, I still don't get why you couldn't just write the algorithm again in your own code. What would stop you from doing that legally?
Nothing. Legally, nothing stops you from rewriting it. As long as you don't copy the actual code, line for line, variable for variable, you're clean. It's not copyright, after all. But here's the catch. The patent protects the method, the way it does it. So if you use the same steps, the psychoacoustic masking, the FFT transform, the Huffman coding, you're still infringing, even if your variable is called fart32 instead of mask32. They don't care how you write it. They care that you do it that way. And courts side with them, because obvious to a person skilled, that's the death sentence. If your genius code does the exact same trick, you're sunk.
So you're saying if you use the same algorithm, then you're infringing?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. The patent doesn't read, use these words. It reads, achieve compression by filtering out what humans don't hear, then encode with variable bit rate. So if your program does that, doesn't matter if you call it Bob or Alice, you're using the patented process. No escape.
Oh, they actually made
Because
it. Are you saying they actually made it more general? Like,
yeah, they wrote it wide. Not do this equation, but do this effect. Not build this ladder, but climb this wall using rungs. Anyone who climbs the same wall, same spacing, same wood, same nails, gets sued. Doesn't matter if you sawed your own planks. The patent's patented. That's how they locked the door. And once it's general, there's no wiggling.
you mean they actually made it so if you use any technique that eliminates the effects you can't hear, that would be covered under the patent?
Not any technique. Theirs. Psychoacoustic masking. Specifically, the way they measure hearing thresholds, weight frequencies, chop bits based on that model. That's what they claimed. If your filter does it differently, like you use a neural net or some magic ear training, and it works, maybe you're free. But if it ends up sounding like MP3 and you use the same math tables, you're toast. They didn't patent hide silence. They patented hide silence this way. Still, broad enough if you're
Okay, so I guess they couldn't patent the algorithm, but they could patent the box diagram of the algorithm.
Yeah, pretty much. The algorithm was the soul. The box was the cage. They drew it all out. This block does masking. This block does quantization. This block assembles the file and said, this chain is ours. You can hate the soul. You can write your own soul. But if your soul dances in our cage, you're renting. That's how the law likes it. Boxes first, code second, even if it's all pretend.
But anyways, that is an algorithm. It just means that you can patent like a generalization of an algorithm.
If you frame it as a method of instead of these exact steps, you can patent a pattern, not the dance, the choreography. And if nobody else is dancing close, well, they own the stage.
All right. Next topic. You can choose a topic.
Ever heard of the quiet quitting craze? People just doing the bare minimum at work, because why bother anymore?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
It started during the pandemic. When everything went remote, people realized the company doesn't actually